because the first time I realized it was really beneficial, it was after a festival. Had a little LSD in me, and then we came home, and then I decided to finish the bag and lie on my back. I remember what LSD does is really it paints the picture. It illustrates things way more fun. So what I was doing when I was on it, felt like walking through corridors of my mind, like a library of my thoughts, and I would open up these books of things I haven't gotten past, like a friend that fucked me over or something, and then I feel like I reassemble the words for the story that I've built in my head to make sense, see it from all angles, and then I close the book, feel like I've forgiven myself and the person, put the book back and walk to the next thing.
It's Johnny Late Night! And now here's your host, Johnny Rogers! Welcome back, everyone, to the Johnny Rogers Show. This is episode number 80. As always, make sure you go to patreon.com/TheJohnnyRogers, and that's how you get these episodes ad-free and exclusive before anyone else at the low price of $2 due to inflation. I didn't make it that way. That's just what happened to, I guess, Patreon. They decided to increase it from $1 to $2. So don't be in my DMs being like, really, Johnny, an extra $1 a month? You're getting that greedy with this Patreon money. It's not my fault. I'm keeping it as affordable as I can for you guys. But as always, don't forget to rate, view, and subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, all that stuff. It really helps out the podcast. My guest today, I'm very excited to finally get on. It is the missing piece of the Ruckus comedy collection that I've had so far on the podcast. It's Logan Brown, it's Liam Rado, and now we have Kia Mazar. Kia, say what's up to the people.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me all well? Cool. All right.
There we are.
Happy Ramadan, everyone. How we doing?
How's it going, dude?
I'm doing fantastic. I just got back from a fun little Monday Absolute show, and yeah.
Nice. Did you do the Micah Preston or the one in New Orleans?
The Preston one, and yeah, made fun of Filipinos. Not fun, actually. I love Filipinos, so I was like just doing their accent and just telling them, just telling jokes. Because I went to, this is a true story, so it kind of worked out. I went to go get a colonoscopy, kind of young for one, but I just have some digestive shit that I wanted to figure out. So
and you're like, clean me out, doc.
Yeah, let's figure this shit out. I like fasting too. It's actually kind of fun. Sucks, but it's fun. Not when you're pissing out of your ass, because they make you drink 4 liters of Peg Light. That sucks. But I walked in and everybody in the clinic was Filipino, all the nurses, and they were so nice. But the first thing they're like, "Oh, it's Bob Marley." I was like, "This is gonna be the best." I was so high, and they were just calling me Bob Marley the entire time. Yeah,
that's a perfect fitting for that. Yeah, the Filipino accent is one of the funnier accents. Like,
and it's fun.
Great.
It's like, yeah, I like hearing it. I love it. I love your hair. I was like, yeah. It's a bit scary. It's a bit scary doing accents and stuff. You never know how the crowd's gonna react, but
that's very true. You definitely gotta play it. Like, it's got to be smart, at least if you're gonna do it.
It's playful. The way that it was
playful. Yeah. But I don't think anything is really like off limits when it comes to, as long as it's not like hacky or, like you said, not playful. Like, if it seems attacking, then it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Exactly.
You're just
I did
trying
attack
to
Italians.
degrade. Yeah. Italians are.
They didn't like
game.
that. That's what I thought, but apparently you can't talk about Nona's mustache.
Not known as mustache.
Not known as mustache. Yeah.
Fuck. So you said the word that you wanted for the podcast was dissociate.
Yeah. Associate's a fun
so
what
is it about that word that stood out to you, really?
It's something I like to do sometimes. I feel like a lot of comics do, and I notice it in other people all the time. Like yesterday I saw somebody getting yelled by their boss and how they were dissociating, and I was like kind of picking up on cues, like they were cleaning certain things and like they're just kind of staring off. And dissociation kind of encompasses a lot of things, that because it's one of the things I do when I get bored. It's one of the ththings I do when I get nervous, and it's also something that happens on like certain drugs and trips. Recently, I'd say ketamine. I did that. I had a pretty heavy dose a couple weeks ago. Haven't touched alcohol since. Not that I was trying to quit alcohol. It was just something that came out of it. Just haven't had the need to. And yeah, and that's a dissociative drug right there, where it completely separates your mind and your body, and
Wow.
it's a crazy thing that happens when you do that.
Okay, so for dissociating, did you find it happened more after you started like experimenting with drugs, or was it something that you always did but didn't really have like the proper description or label for it, you know?
It was something I always did for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
I guess they
something
call
I always
it
did for sure.
daydreaming.
Yeah, yeah, loved
Yeah,
daydreaming. That was always had that on my report card. Yeah,
yeah. Loves to
pretty much.
daydream.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
So yeah.
daydream I have my own experiences with dissociating in varying degrees. Like daydreaming was always one for me that I would do a lot as a kid when it felt like I didn't really have the power to change the environment around me. It's a lot
Mm,
easier to just put your mind somewhere else, right? And more fun in a way, right? It gives you like hope if the daydream is good. But then I noticed when I was an adult and I was dissociating like at work and daydreaming, it was always about stuff from my childhood. And it wouldn't be like specific things, even. It'd be like a random street that I used to walk down. I'd be in my head, like thinking about walking down that street. And I always was like, that's a good indicator whenever I started doing that, that I need to, that whatever situation I'm in now has to change. Because it's
mhm,
like when I'm happy and I'm passionate about a project and I'm distracted and working on things, I never daydream. I never
mm,
like think it's always when I'm bored or like I'm trying to get out of this situation. The other side about dissociating that can be scary though is I did a huge like for the first time that I ever did dabs, I did
oh,
way too much.
always, always.
Way too much.
Yeah,
I had no idea, right? Like
yeah.
someone brings it out and you're used to weed where it's, you can see you're like, okay, that's a lot. That's probably gonna get me pretty high. But with
Hmm.
a dab, it's like a tiny little, that's all you need. And Buddy just put in a little glob of it. And I got so high that I said out loud, if I don't think or look at my legs, it's like they're not even there. And I could
Yeah,
dissociate out of my body that much. And it sounds like the
yeah,
highest thing to say, but if you've ever been that high, you can understand like that feeling where you're like, you're not
yeah,
one with your body at all.
yeah. Like weed does that. Like I said, ketamine, other drugs do that for sure. But the dissociation is not always that bad, depending on how you're
Mm.
going about it. The bad part is when I was growing up, I definitely dissociated and didn't know how much I was trying to dissociate or think about thoughts that I didn't like until I went tree planting.
Mm.
And you're alone out there for 8 hours a day for 3 months straight. So you
Wow.
got nothing but time and you got no choice. You can't dissociate. You're there and you have your thoughts will come, all the bad shit that you're trying to hide will come to the forefront. And I remember it was actually the most healing time, like crying many times in the field out there, and just like thinking about thoughts and like forgiving old past traumas and stuff like that. It was yeah, it was good. But the
I
good
want to get
side, I
back to
don't
the
know.
ketamine,
Yeah,
but I want to get back
yeah.
to the ketamine stuff, but I want to know more about like the tree planting journey for you because you did it a couple times, correct? Right?
I did 6 seasons.
Six.
So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
lot.
So
So
I
like,
started,
what was the first one? Like when you were like, I'm gonna go all Vancouver. I'm gonna go all the way up to Vancouver.
yeah, like 6 hours north of Vancouver,
Yeah,
like
wow.
pretty far, like in the bush of BC and Alberta. Yeah,
So what
yeah.
was like the thing that pushed you to do that?
We were at a party. Everybody was talking, and you know how you drink or do whatever, and then you start planning, and everyone's got plans. So
Yeah.
they started talking about tree planting, and I was so intrigued because I remember like I always around this time I was about to graduate high school, and I remember thinking to myself like I'm an immigrant in Canada, and I don't know shit. I don't know shit, and I'm scared of everything. And so when they just started describing it's the hardest job, blah blah blah, and the appealing part was like it sucks. For some reason, I remember I was like, this sucks so much. If I can do this, then I could probably like be somewhat like and everybody hates this. This is the time I was listening to a lot of Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson when they were really pushing self discipline.
Hmm.
This is before they started. Jordan Peterson became like this just trying to make money through like media and stuff, trying to like get people
Yeah,
pissed off,
yeah.
which is a good tactic, man. If you want to be a millionaire, go ahead. But at the time, I was like, okay, self-discipline. This is what I want to do. So at that party, people were talking and this like, yo, we want to do it. We're gonna do it. I was the only one that walked up to the person throwing up the party. The next day, their aunt apparently owned a whole company. They're like, I think my aunt is like higher up in the company. Turns out they own the company. I got the job super
Wow.
easy. They were a little nervous to give me the job because they're like, this kid's gonna hurt himself. Because I took a while to hit puberty. Still at like 17, I was like tiny. But they told me they're like, there's gonna be hailstorms the size of golf balls, mosquitoes are gonna eat you alive, and yeah, and it did kick my ass to the point I wanted to quit. 2 months in, looked at my bank account, couldn't afford to leave.
Wow.
So yeah, yeah. Even getting there, I could hardly afford it. I took a 78-hour long bus ride from Ottawa to BC, which you could do back then doing the Greyhound, and yeah, dude, that
That is a rough bus trip, my friend.
tell me about it,
Holy
dude. I thought
God
I had it
damn.
bad, and then I saw somebody in the back, like shaking on the ground. We talked to him after. He was coming off of heroin. He said he wanted to quit heroin, and going to like Medicine Hat was the move. I was like, all right, dude. Yeah,
Wow. Man,
crazy
you
bus
never
ride.
know what someone's going through, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
some
yeah,
dude is just shaking on
yeah.
the bus, and his plan is to quit heroin. He's going to Medicine Hat. That's
Doing
this
it in a
guy's life
bus,
on a
dude. Doing it in a
bus.
fucking Greyhound.
That's
Yeah, it's
crazy.
wild. Yeah, yeah. And going up there, man, that was my trip going up. I'm like, this is crazy. We'd stop places, and then somebody's like, where are you going? We're like, BC. They're like, what are you doing? We're like, planting. They're like, in Alberta. I'm like, in BC, Alberta. They're like, that's bear country. And I'm like, this is not helping at all. Like,
Yeah, you're just increasing my anxiety levels.
yeah,
Jesus.
as farther out west, the crazier shit got.
God
Yeah.
damn. So let's flip back to the recent ketamine trip. Because that, whenever I hear ketamine, I get like a chill goes up my spine. Like I don't know what it is about that.
It's a scary drug if you are
Yeah.
like if you aren't familiar with it. I'm big into the festival scene. I got to see it around me before I tried it,
Okay.
and I got to see the dangers and the benefits. And
The
thankfully,
K-hole.
I've never fell into a K hole. So there's a difference of falling into a K hole and like
Sitting on the
walking
edge.
into a yeah. Oh no, like falling or like walking into it because you could do it to the point where you do enough, you lie on your back and you meditate into it. That's very slow, and then you can feel like the separation between the mind and the body slowly, which is way more comforting. It's like getting slowly turning up. Yeah, it's like going into your tub, letting the hot water flow into while you're sitting there, compared to just like getting right in with a full tub. It's gonna be really hot if you
Mm.
just go right into it, but that's what happens sometimes. People do too much, and then that's when they fall in. They're not prepared for it. They're like standing or something, or dancing. And all of a sudden, you're on the ground and you can't feel your body. That sounds like the most terrifying thing ever. And so I kept away from it for a very long time. And then I just kind of hung out with, you could say, the wrong people, but the right people who knew how to like do things with like safety first and everything. And I
Yeah.
had a good experience when I was young. And it really does. Like if you do it right, I don't want to push drugs right now, but
No, no, no.
it
Yeah. We
it
should always say
feels
use
like,
responsibly
yeah,
at your
yeah,
own
you
risk.
use responsibly, yeah. But coming out of it, I get out of my shell. I'm way more social, and
Mm.
going into it, I needed a moment of we were talking about dissociation, and just let my mind. Because the first time I realized it was really beneficial, it was after a festival. I had a little LSD in me, and then we came home, and then I decided to finish the bag and lie on my back. I remember what LSD does is really it paints the picture. It illustrates things way more fun. So what I was doing when I was on it, felt like walking through corridors of my mind, like a
Wow.
library of my thoughts, and I would open up these books of things I haven't gotten past, like a friend that fucked me over or something, and then
Mm.
I feel like I reassemble the words for the story that I've built in my head to make sense, see it from all angles, and then I close the book, feel like I've forgiven myself and the person, put the book back and walk to the next thing. It was really crazy. It was really hard to explain, but yeah, it was yeah,
That's
it was nice.
stuff like that. Like stuff like that. I understand why, like, ancient tribes were found to use like ayahuasca and LSD and
Mhm.
mushrooms, and like because of things like that. Like to anyone else who's never done these things, it's very easy to just paint that experience as like, oh well, you were just hallucinating. They love saying like,
Mhm.
oh, it's all a hallucination. And I always said, well, did it feel real? Because what's the
Exactly.
difference? Right? Like when you were a kid, you were told that Santa Claus was real and you believed it. And because you believed it, you felt that feeling of
Mhm.
joy and warmth and like this, Christmas spirit, they call it, right? But it's not real. It's just a lie. But you still felt it and it still changed your brain chemistry. And with mushrooms, it literally changes your brain chemistry, like rewires all of
Mhm.
those synapses. And I had a similar experience on mushrooms, but not as detailed as going book by book. But I remember um, this, and it's kind of like I always explain. It's kind of like when you have a dream and some crazy shit happens in the dream, but you're not really supposed to focus on that. You're supposed to focus on like what's the overall message that your brain is
Yeah.
trying to tell you. And that's what this was that happened to me on mushrooms. It was telling me to just let go of things. That was the biggest thing I learned from mushrooms. I can't be in control of everything. I have to just let go
Mhm.
and just let things be the way that they are. And I remember sitting back in a chair and it felt like my brain opened up and there was this stream of light and consciousness just blasting into my brain. Like, have you ever seen Thor? You
uh,
remember when
yeah.
the guy like he like opens up the portal thing to take them back to Asgard, and it's just
Oh,
this
and everything gets
huge
sucked in.
thing of light that everything gets sucked into, and that was going into my head, and it felt like I was taking in all of the knowledge that's ever been there, but I couldn't
Yeah.
hold on to any of it.
You remember 0.5% of it. Yeah.
That all I remember is that experience and none of the information, but I remember the feeling
Yeah.
of being filled with information. And it was just like, oh, okay, the whole point of that is to show you, like, look, there's lots of stuff going on, but like, you don't need to hold on to all of it. Like,
Exactly.
just take what matters
Exactly.
most to you and move forwards with it.
It also teaches you like that's in your head. Like those thoughts are there, so you can acquire them. You can still get back to it and everything. So it's
Yeah.
really nice.
It's crazy too to think like
Yeah.
how much brain, like, we know almost nothing about our brains. And like, where is that going to be like
Yeah.
10, 15 years from now?
Exactly. And a lot of the time, people say like we only use 10% of our brains. A lot of people are saying if we used any more, it might fuck us up. Like,
True.
yeah, yeah. So I could see that happening for sure. Like at 10%, my brain like I have ADHD, so for it to use more sounds wild.
Yeah, yeah,
Sounds too
yeah, yeah.
crazy.
You're like, there'd be
Yeah,
way too many thoughts going on at
yeah,
this time.
yeah. But I understand people being wary and thinking it's not real or something. But hey, until you've experienced it, you can't really yeah, it's really hard to explain. And
Yeah,
when I explain like my experiences, and like the only word I can explain for ketamine is it's weird. It's very weird. I don't walk out of thinking of these like grand. I can't come out thinking like, oh, this is the lesson I learned. I just felt like an atom blasting through different situations and coming out and going, life's pretty nice. I don't know what it does to your brain. I don't know what the dissociation between the body and
yeah,
the mind
yeah.
does, but it works. It works for some reason, and it's more comforting than a hard mushroom trip. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
hard. It's a hard one.
Yeah, a hard mushroom trip can feel like you're locked on a roller coaster that you're not allowed off of,
Yeah,
and you're
yeah, for
terrified,
sure.
and you're like, I guess I just have to sit in this. Like
Yeah,
it's just. Have you had like a bad? I know we've been doing like pro. This is a pro drug
yeah, yeah. No,
podcast,
no,
but
no. I
I
have.
love playing devil's advocate.
Yeah. So mushrooms. Next time I do it, it needs to be alone in like the dark room and doing the whole because the only time I do psychedelics or drugs recreationally is one festival, or maybe if I get to another one, but it's called Shamala. It's like 5 days. The drugs are allowed. You have to present it to be like this is what I got, and so that's when I have fun. But any other time I do it, it's mainly just because like I need to deal with some shit, and therapy
Mm.
takes too long. Yeah,
It is like
that's
quick therapy.
yeah, pretty much. Um, the, yeah, every time I've been doing it lately, where I'm like with people, there's this thought that goes in my head that I need to take care of. I haven't come back to it because I'm doing okay, so I don't want to do anything to fuck it up. But a key like thing that keeps coming back is I feel like a huge loser.
Mm.
And I have this huge fear of ending up a loser. And I don't know why when I'm on the mushrooms and I think of the things I've done, I've done like a lot of shit. I've traveled. I've seen the great as parts of Australia and BC. No one like could say they've seen like a lot. Not no one, but a lot of people say I've planted 800,000 trees minimum my whole life, and like doing comedy, things are going successful. But there's still this looming feeling like that is like, yeah, you don't know anything, and you might never know anything, and like this is not going to work out. Comedy's not going to work out. You're going to end up a loser. And I don't know why on the mushrooms I start to feel like that. Maybe it's something I need to feel like the fullest, biggest loser, and then accept myself. Feel like that's what I
Yeah.
need to do. I think that's the approach that I need to take. But it's weird. I didn't know how afraid of being like, and loser is such a messed up word, I think, but like being not enough, which I
Not
feel like
worthy enough.
a lot of
Yeah.
comedians are, yeah, go through that. Yeah.
Dude, you're preaching to
Yeah.
the choir. I mean, like,
Yeah.
like if I don't have enough shows booked, I'm like, oh, I'm a loser. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm
Yeah.
losing out on these shows, and I'm not progressing forwards. Like, I missed a podcast last week, and I'm like, you're a loser. But
Yeah.
I've always had these thoughts too. Same thing with everything, and the biggest thing I realized was like, it doesn't, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't actually matter. And from an
Yeah.
outside perspective, you might be an impressive person that people tell stories about, and you're not even aware of that. And so
Exactly. Yeah.
you don't need to remind yourself of those things to boost your ego, but to just like just enough to dampen that thought of
Yeah.
like being a loser. Because anytime that thought comes up, it might be almost a form of miscommunication between our consciousness and our actions
Mm.
of it. That it doesn't mean to call yourself a loser. It means like keep working, keep going, you know what I mean, like keep progressing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's being translated to through an insecurity maybe, or through something that somebody made it maybe
Yeah.
have called you or called someone else at one time, and we like hold on to that shit for some reason.
Yeah, I think a part of it also has to do with like the huge hustle culture, having to like
Yeah.
hustle, which I like to. Only recently have I understood the hustle culture because I'm doing something I love. With the Ruckus crew, doing Strip Joker and all those. That's actually I love it. I love losing sleep over it and stressing, and yeah, now I finally understand it. But I still part of me is like this needs to work out.
Yeah.
Which the other word I was thinking of was love because recently everything I've been doing to not just in case it doesn't work out, everything I've been doing is heart first. Do it everything with love because even if you fuck it up, then at the end of the day, you've either made something beautiful or you've built a connection. That's why recently, um, yeah, working hard on the podcast like for Ruckus Comedy, but also every year. It just started last year, but I rented out a cottage, made it a fun psychedelic party with comedians, and the whole point was just to like bring comedians together to like kind of fortify the community, let people trip for the first time, kind of like dissociate egos a little, and go from there. And that was all through like the love of comedy and like the community. And yeah, as no matter what I do, as long as I put heart first, then I won't feel bad.
That's a great way to
Yeah.
be, man. Honestly, like put your heart in, and like folk. I always say like whenever you feel obsessed with something, like your Strip Joker show or like the
Mhm.
podcast, that's an indication of like the thing that you need to keep
Yeah.
following, because it's exactly what you said. There's going to be real heart in it. People are going to see it. Like I've seen people try to do, different unique comedy shows, and they always kind of like start with this big bang and then they fizzle out
Yeah.
because of they
Yeah.
don't have heart in it. They just thought this is a good idea. Let me put this forwards. But like with Strip Joker, this is a great product. This is a great idea for a comedy show. It's new, it's fresh, it's audiences like love it. And that right there is going to be like your bread and butter. It's going to be the thing that's like, yeah,
Yeah.
we did it. We did it in these little rooms at first until but we loved it, so we kept doing it, and now you're touring and doing it, and it's just I
Hmm.
love seeing that. And I love seeing like comedians come together. Like the fact that like I
Yeah.
remember moving from Toronto back to Ottawa when I first looked up. a comedy show to go to, and I came across Ruckus Comedy, I was like proud in a way of like, I'm like, wow. I was like, a local comedy community is like, three comics have come together, four comics have come together and been like, let's fucking just do this as a team. Let's just make
Yeah.
our own
Yeah.
thing and do it as a team, and fuck everyone else. Fuck the club spots for now. Like, let's just
Yeah.
focus on our own independent shows. And that was the first show that I went to, was yours at that the barbecue thing
The
with the secret.
tease.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
no,
yeah, yeah.
it was
Oh
before
no,
that.
Fat Boys. Fat Boys.
Fat Boys. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. That was a fun show. Yeah, that's when it first started, and that's when we actually started to like really feel good about the stuff we were doing. We were really scraping things together and figuring it out, but we finally did.
And
I always felt,
kudos to you.
yeah,
I was just gonna say
yeah.
kudos to you, because I go to that show. I don't know that you're on it. I don't know you're in it. And he runs in from a shift. You were working somewhere. You ran in
Oh
from
yeah,
shift, did your spot, and then ran back to work. And I was like,
yeah. I drove
that's
all
a
the way.
hustler.
Yeah, that was fun, dude. That was fun. I came in, I
You like
did
gave
great, and I
people
left. And I
weed.
was like, yeah, yeah. That was awesome. That was so much fun. Yeah, when we first started, of course we didn't know what the fuck we were doing. We partially deserved the hate we were getting, but I think we finally got there. I never There's one thing
What was the
I never
hate?
felt. Oh well, honestly, we were just opening up rooms after rooms, and uh I don't know if it was Ruckus. Liam is, I remember, he's a very uh here's who I am, you like it or you don't. Back then it was much more aggressive. Now everybody loves them, but back then it was really aggressive, and I think uh, part of it came from that, because whenever we did get success, everybody would just imagine Liam going "fuck you," "fuck the police," Tupac shit, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's where it came from. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think we were a good heel for the community at the time because it felt
Mm.
pretty separated. One thing about the community, though, when I first started, I was really young. I never felt like I had a community, um, and that's why the we were doing a cottage thing, and that's why when we first started Ruckus, if you were new, you had spots. We'll give you a spot for the whole week that we had shows, because we wanted to like change it up. The scene is right now very nice. Everyone's super welcoming. When I started, I was 17. Talked about jokes people didn't like. It was just stupid. I thought it being offensive was funny, and
Yeah, sure.
so I understand the shit that I got for it. But yeah, I felt very nervous around the older comics and stuff. I felt like there was like an air of like, not, I don't know, it was weird ego, and like people just kind of wanted you to eat shit on stage so they could do it, kill
Hmm.
it, go ahead and kill it. The idea of we all do well when we all do well is like becoming stronger and stronger, because when I first went to BC and I went to these parties, I didn't want to come back. I just kept telling myself, I'm like, this is where I belong, these are my people. And I remember when I was before I left, I mentioned that to a person I met there. And then she told me, she's like, well, your problem is that you're trying to escape when what you should be doing is bringing that energy to your home or wherever you are. And I took that to heart. And I decided I was like, that's right.
That's good
This is what I need
advice.
to do. So, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Because that's
slowly it's happening. And
non-selfish.
yeah.
Because I'm sure she would have
And
liked you to
Ottawa is
keep coming
such a good
back, you
place.
know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. And Ottawa is the great place to do comedy because I don't think people understand how good of a community it is. Like, you don't know until you're in it and you're like, fuck, you can get three shows a week if you want quality rooms, and yeah, and then everybody's really like, everyone's good here. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's not a hustle and bustle, and hundreds of comics aren't trying to fight for the same shitty 6 minute spot. Yeah.
Dude, I have so many
Yeah.
stories from Toronto of
Yeah. You were in Toronto for a bit, eh?
like 7 years, 7, 8 years, and like
Yeah.
lining up, like standing in a bar with like literally like 60 other open mic comedians, and just waiting for that list to come out, and people just dive on this list to write their name in an early
Yeah.
spot so they could get to another spot, right? Like they don't care about this place. They just want to get their 5 minutes out,
Yeah.
run to another place, get another 5 minutes out. And I remember looking at the sheet and there was like whatever, like 50 names on it. And I just went, I don't, this is a waste of my time. Like that's when it started to click with me. It's like, this is an enormous waste of my time. Like I would rather, and I went to the Underground because it was like a cool comedy club that I love going to, like Weed Lounge, everything. Just checked all the boxes, right? Weed Comedy Lounge, perfect. And I just went and I just hung out there and I just watched comedy, smoked a joint, had a great time, met some other comics. And then eventually I was hanging out on the right night and someone didn't show up and they're like, you want to go up and do 5 minutes? Sure. And now I have this like home club just because I was hanging out and I wasn't wasting my time running around all these stupid open mics. And I get it if you're just starting out.
Yeah.
Do that. Do the shit. Do the 50th spot. Be there at 1:00 in the morning and do that if you're just starting comedy. But when I'm, 12 years in, like I know what I'm doing on stage in terms of like stage presence, and like unless I have something really fresh that I don't know where I'm going with it, then maybe I'll go to an open mic and see, like, talk it out on stage, but like that I can't do that hustle anymore of like trying to get to all the open mics.
Did they ever do it where the hosts of the people running the show, if you pay them, they boost you up to the top?
No, I never heard of that.
Dude, so after
that's a
my
grift.
last season,
That's such a grift. I would
slap
that person in the head if they said that to me.
I didn't do the show. I walked out. So this happened in Vancouver. I decided on my last year, which was the only reason I went back actually for tree planting was COVID, and there was
good time to go.
So I knew we were considered essential workers, so that was fun. And I was probably the most social during COVID because you were with the same people in the 3 months. So like you're quarantined with a group of people. Yeah, so that was nice. But after that, I decided I was going to stay and live in my van in Vancouver to do comedy. Did not have a great time, I'll be honest. I did the comedy, I did shows, I kind of people start to recognize me. So if I go back, I can get those spots. But man, it is basically less. It's less rooms and more comics than Ottawa. And then there's this one room that's a show up, go up. I'll call it Three Monkeys or some shit like that. You guys, it's fucked up what you do, but I signed up. I was supposed to be fifth. Okay, I got there so early, fifth. As the night's going on, I was the 16th person because people paid the $10 to get their shit boosted up to the top. I was like, oh no, this is ridiculous. I'm going home. Like, I'd rather go in my van and then fucking just not, watch a special at home or like write.
I'll talk it out to the homeless guy. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I'll pay you $5 if you just listen to me right now.
It wasn't even a good room. It was just like as soon as the comics they left, and I was like, this is messed up. Like the comedy, and half of them are actors. They're not really there to do comedy. They're not doing it for the passion of comedy. They're doing it for I don't know. I don't know what the whole point of comedians. I mean,
in case acting doesn't work out, I guess.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
That's when someone's like half in, half out, because I've done like tried to get into acting. Like I got an agent and I got headshots and I went to classes and then I met real actors. Like my friend Jared Bronstein, he's a real actor.
Yeah.
Like that's all he does. Like he doesn't he doesn't make TikToks. He doesn't like try to do he does acting. And like when he has free time, he's going to an acting course. Like he's always trying to move that forwards. And I was like, oh, I don't have that level of commitment for that thing. I'll go, comedy. I'll have the same level of commitment, but to try to do like auditions and try to do the same amount of comedy that I was doing and a podcast and work 2 jobs or whatever, it was just way too many things.
Yeah.
Way too many things. Yeah. Like you got to be all in on at least 3 things. I think you can do at most. You can juggle 3 things at once.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
So so I got to say, like, Ottawa's killing it with the comedy. Yeah,
man, I'm excited to be here. It's cool too because there's like longer spots too that are like opening up, and you don't really get those opportunities in like Toronto or other major cities unless you are further ahead or you're producing your own show and you're giving yourself that amount of time. But here it feels like, you could just get a weekend spot somewhere and, it's a 15-minute set. Like that's great for your comedy to be able to work out 15 minutes.
we have 3 comedy clubs for a small town. That's crazy.
And
Like
two
the fact
yuck
that there's
yucks.
no there, yeah, the fact that there the fact that there isn't like an Ottawa comedy festival is pretty ridiculous. There's money on the table. Like, why does Edinburgh get to be the place? Why can't Ottawa be the hub? Why can't, mainly because all the
Start
owners
it.
hate each other. Yeah, right. I think for the next, I really wanted to start some type of festival. But we need to get, I want to get all
Fuck
the
the
clubs on board.
I
Fuck the
was gonna
clubs.
say fuck the no, fuck the well, maybe
Oh,
if they don't agree, but like
yeah.
fuck the Ottawa Comedy Festival. You need to do like Ruckus Fest. Like it
Yeah,
needs
yeah,
to
yeah,
be
yeah.
like I think it should come from you guys of like
Mm.
your team. Like let's take a week or whatever and plan shows that people could get to and from and have like 2 shows going on here and 2 shows going on
I,
here and
I was thinking of Bank Street.
yeah,
A
that's a
Bank Street
good
is a bunch of
spot.
bars with decent rooms. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And if you get
yeah,
enough, like you don't need that many venues. You get a couple venues in and you do 8 and 10 p.m. show times or
yeah,
whatever. I
yeah.
mean,
That
I
would be
bet
cool.
Laugh Lounge would jump in on that.
Oh, for sure. But they do have their Dirty Bird festival, so I don't know.
True, it might
Maybe.
be
Yeah, yeah.
well, I guess depending on timing, right? Like it's unless they're
Exactly.
selling for it or whatever, but I
Yeah.
think it's something
We'll
definitely worth
see.
looking into.
Yeah, for sure. Like the original, I do like the idea of Ruckus. The original idea was like to kind of get the community together. So like each indie producer has their own room. Like Poor Boy is close,
Mm,
but let's say Hoot and Hollers wants to do a room, but they do a temporary room here, or like they have a booth set up on the streets. Because Bank Street shuts down, like especially during the summer, every weekend for like an event. So it'd be cool if we could like, it's a big dreams, big things I'm talking about. But if it would be cool to shut down all of Bank Street to do like a full comedy festival, bring the mimes, bring the circus people, bring the magicians, to do the stuff on the street, full on entertainment. But comedy
yeah.
being like the main idea.
No, dude, that would be sick. I would be
Yeah.
down to even like help work on something like that with you getting planning all the stuff. I'd be so I love comedy event planning. I don't like the part where you refresh the Eventbrite page and you haven't sold tickets yet and you're just like, okay,
Man,
here we go.
producing,
So
producing
much anxiety in
kills you.
producing. Oh, I
Yeah.
can feel my hair
I will
falling out.
say I am not a fan of producing. The only reason we move tickets the way we do is Liam Rado. He loves pushing tickets, and I will give it up to him. I really appreciate that because, man, I was doing this alone when I first like was starting to do shows in Babylon. Rest in peace. Um, yeah, and dude, it was so stressful. Doing it alone is so stressful. Yeah, that's why you need that team. Yeah, you need a team. You really, really need a team.
And like people like to look at individuals and be like, oh wow, look how far they've gotten. Like an Andrew Schultz is a perfect example. You're
Yeah.
like, wow, he's doing so many things. He's got a thing on Netflix and he's got a special out and he has a podcast. It's like, yeah, because he has a team of like 15,
Yeah.
20 people around him.
And he mentions that. He mentions
Oh,
that a lot.
constantly. He's
Yeah.
really good
Yeah.
at doing that and mentioning
Yeah.
like how much his team helps him do what he does. And I think it's important to say that, right? So it kind of pulls the curtain aside. And I mean, one of the reasons why I got into stand-up comedy was because someone explained to me like how it was possible. And then seeing people make money in it and make it a career, I was like, it made it possible. Whereas
Mhm.
before you would just think like, I guess you have to be famous to be a comedian because the only comedians
Yeah.
I see are on HBO. So how do
Mhm.
you get to that from nothing to that?
Yeah.
Like it didn't make any
Yeah.
sense to me. It's good that people
Yeah.
do that.
And I gotta remind myself, yeah, like I was talking about, I do things heart first because I always like I have this tendency to think money first. And that always
Mm-hmm.
like messes things up. I mean, the goal is 62 million in the bank and then I'll stop. Um, but yeah, yeah.
At
I
least
had
you
a
have a
dream,
stop
dude.
point.
I had a dream because that's when I turn evil. That's when my morality goes out the window. I don't. Okay, so this is a very arbitrary number because I had a dream and I got walked up to by like some politicians of like, I feel like it was like a Middle Eastern country going,
Oh,
you need to make this speech and it's going to start a great war, but it's going to fund, the government, blah, blah, blah. And I just went, that's insane. I would never do that. And they went, we're going to give you $62 million. I was like, where's my motherfucking script? And I realized I was like, and I woke up and I was like, So that's how much it takes, eh? 62
Yeah,
million
that's
before.
your number.
That's my number. All right, I
So
gotta
you need
watch it.
62 million. That's real fuck you money. Where even if an
Yeah,
evil government was like, you have to do this, you're like, I don't need that money. I already have 62 million.
there you go. I can't be
Yeah,
bought.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Fuck yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I always ask a question to all my guests is if you could make a phone call to 15-year-old Kia through this magical phone where that timeline does not affect your current timeline. So there's no butterfly effect in your own life,
Mm.
but you're talking to a 15-year-old version of you. Like, what piece of advice would you give yourself at that age?
Um, what are some stuff? I think people say I don't have regrets because of the way I am now. Well, but you gotta. I feel like it's hard to say that you don't have regrets. What are something? I don't know how it's affected my brain. Because I feel okay. I hope it didn't mess it up too much, but definitely um wait to smoke weed. Yeah, just wait a little longer to smoke weed. That's all. Because I feel like the only reason I have symptoms of ADHD is because of the constant dopamine filling, like the constant chase of dopamine. That's why I have like tended like and yeah, and I feel like it's made its way like intertwined in my life to the point where I'm like I'm trying to get rid of it as my personality because I'm on the road. I really
Mm,
want to quit. And the only reason I want to quit, if I wasn't doing comedy, man, I would be so happy with weed. But the thing is, weed becomes your best friend until you find a passion, and then it becomes your worst enemy.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, I
yeah,
just
yeah.
part of me thinks maybe the reason that I still love it so much and makes me like so comfortable is because I started so young. And
When did you start?
dude, it was like grade 9,
Grade
like
9. Take me to that
14,
experience. Someone
15.
hands you a blunt. Are you rolling it yourself? Like,
Yeah, it was I went to West Carleton, so which is like pretty rural, like in the country, okay? I was pretty
okay.
like very white school. The only place that you could go outside for lunch was the chip stand called
Oh,
Lady
nice.
Dies, and behind the chip stand was where everybody was smoking weed. Kind of found myself there and I was like, yeah, let's try it. I used to be afraid of it and then like people around me were doing it. Actually, you know what? Not even my close friends. It was just the people that I thought were cool. What a fucking loser.
Mm.
Yeah, you know how the hot girls. So I was yeah, and then somebody just put like here, smoke this. Put a pipe in my mouth. I was smoking. Didn't feel it the first time. Second time I did it was on my birthday, and the third time I did it was at school again, and then I got suspended. And you know what? That was probably
Uh,
for the best. That was
yeah,
probably for the best because I
that's
didn't touch it for like a couple years
that's
after
good
that.
adulting on the
Yeah, for
school's
like
part.
yeah. I didn't do it
Like,
for a
what
year
the
after that.
hell are you doing? You're like, I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
trying to be cool.
but other than that, like I think I've made the right decisions to be the person that I want to be in terms of like being kind to others and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because one thing, the first time I did mushrooms and the first lesson out of the mushrooms was um, you shouldn't joke at someone else's expense. You know, being in high school and being the funny kid, I would use other people to get my laughs. And
Hmm.
like it made me feel such an asshole, and I was like, oh no, why did I do that? So that's definitely something I may also tell myself is like you don't have to make jokes on the expense of others so you can get that attention that you want. That's definitely, but thankfully I got that growing up. But yeah,
At
definitely, yeah,
least you you
watch the weed consumption, kid.
yeah, I was gonna say the weed. I always say like if you're gonna start smoking weed, wait till you're like 25 even, because your
Anything,
brain
any
is
substance, yeah,
full anything because your brain is
yeah.
fully developed at that point in time. You're an adult.
Hmm.
You're in your mid 20s, and like yeah, as an adult, if you want to take that choice and do that, do it. You know the risks involved at this point. It's not gonna have as much of an impact as it would have had if you started it way younger, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
all of that said, man, like you're a fully well-rounded human being with like
Thank
self-awareness
you.
and you understand like you have a good head on your shoulders moving forwards and like but it is I agree with you. That is good advice to start
Yeah,
to start
I don't know
later.
what could be my full capacity. Sometimes I think like, am I missing my full potential? And I
That's a fun
don't
thought to
know, which
have
is yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, it is. And
because it means there's
but
always more, right?
yeah, exactly. But the only drug that I'd say like I wouldn't wait to do is DMT, because that really calmed my nerves on like life and death and stuff like that, and really made me understand what's important.
I love that, man. I'm gonna
Yeah,
shout out your
yeah,
socials for the people watching. Go
dope.
check out Kia Mazar on Instagram and Ruckus Comedy on YouTube. You can catch the podcast on there. It's also available on Spotify, wherever else that you find podcasts. But man, it's so good having you on finally, and thankful that you were able to make the
Thanks,
time to
dude.
do this.
You're
People
very easy
watching
to
at
talk
home.
to, Johnny.
Oh, thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that, man. People watching at home, don't forget to, like I always say, rate, view, and subscribe, but I guess you're already viewing. So just rate and subscribe. Go to subscribe to the Patreon. You know the things. Do all the things. Hit the little bell. Hit the thumbs up. All the calls to action. But for now, I've been your host, Johnny Rogers. I'll see you on the next one. You've been listening to The Johnny Rogers Show. New episodes air every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.